We are live. Welcome to the Talking Crit live stream. I am Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR. To me, stage, I'm getting the directional now down properly. Stage right. It's my work spouse, my once a week work spouse, Michael Battalato. And down below us, only because he was the third person to log in, is the one, the only, Matt Finch. You
Hey
know him.
everyone.
This is one of our biggest guests ever. I mean, I hate to say that and put that pressure on you, Matt, but I mean, honestly, except for maybe Steve Winter and Alan Hammock, I mean, this guy's, I shouldn't say that because now our other guests that I have are going to get.
I'm happy
off.
to. I happen to be in the same sentence as Steve Winter and Alan Hammock, so that's.
Well, you are. I mean, at this point, you pretty much are. So, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. I mean, and I want to say that I saw you on a bunch of shows, a bunch of smaller shows than us, pimping your product. And I thought if he could be on some of those shows, he could be on our show. We need to get him on our show. And so I'm glad that you came on because I would have felt very, very, very badly if you hadn't appeared because you were on some shows with some small audience.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I can't make it. I'm real. I'm washing my hair, and
we didn't know. I mean, I figured
comb
that
my beard.
Yeah. Well, I figured your love of wanting to get your Kickstarter out there would triumph over everything, and so that it seemed to work. So
follow the money.
Yeah, so we're here. So we had you here mostly because of your Kickstarter, which is a new relaunch of probably one of the coolest things you ever wrote, the Tome of Adventure Design, a revised edition. But we also want to talk to you about Gary Con, which you just got back from, and you're beaten down from, and just the whole launching of Mythmere Games. So we really have a lot to talk about. We're going to try to keep you engaged so you don't fall asleep because you indicated you're pretty tired after a long week at Gary Con and.
Yeah, it's not just. I was one of my awesome lines from when I didn't know that we were not recording yet was that the pro tip is don't launch a Kickstarter just 2 days after a big convention because you spend you're stressed up till the convention about the Kickstarter, then you're stressed during the convention about the convention, then you're right when you remember that con crud is a real thing. You're also trying to get the Kickstarter launched.
Yes.
And although I got off pretty light this time around, I just got, sort of sniffles and stuff because sometimes I get a headache that goes with it. I guess it's sinuses or something from that. But so yeah, it's been a very, very busy week.
Well, folks, there's a link up for the Kickstarter. We will have a screen share coming up in a bit. I'll add it to the show notes at the end and the pinned comment. But it's the Adventure Design Tome. /Tome of Adventure Design over.
That's it.
Just put into the search engine.
That's what you get for trying to read a URL.
Yeah, I put into the search engine. That's how I found it. We have a goal. He's at 46,361. Since Matt logged in, we've added. Again,
we've added over 300. He was at pretty much 46,000 when we logged. So our goal is to get you to 50.
I'm all for it. I think the internet can do it.
So that's a toughie. Backers. This is. It's beautiful to watch this kind of live. It would be nice to have it up on screen too. But we want you to be able to see Matt first as we talk to him before putting this up on the screen because yes, the Kickstarter is important, but Matt's important. He's a friend of ours.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. We're sorry we missed you, Gary Con. It was just kind of one of those weird decisions. Both Eric and I had reasons, and I love Gary Con. We were both there at the last one they had 2019, but we both and actually Con Crud was one of the reasons I didn't want to go. So maybe the Con Crud you caught would have been the one that I would have caught. So that makes me feel better. But
yeah, well, like I said, it wasn't all that bad, but.
By the way, Greg, no, I am not matching the first 50,000 in funds.
Come on, man! If you were really serious about this, you'd do that. Oh, God! But I tell you what, though, we're not doing that. But we have some other good news too that's not concerning Matt. But we are right on the very
cusp,
cusp of 1,250 subscribers, which means prizes for everybody. Well, almost everybody.
Well, at least opportunity to win prizes. Mm-hmm. So we hit 1,250 before we hit the 1 hour mark. we will give away $100 in drive-through gift certificates to two
Yes.
$50 winners. There's a feature, by the way. So apparently StreamYard now has a raffle feature, so we will figure out how to use that.
That's going to be fun trying to figure that out live. So, man, Tome of Adventure Design, that's one of the books that Eric and I recommend all the time. I have one up here. Well, I moved it. I have one on my desk all the time.
Well,
because it is such an amazing...
Mike, I have one here in Queens, New York, and one at my parents' house in the Poconos. Because if I ever plan on doing any kind of adventure design, if I need to get something ready, I always need a copy, and I have 2 copies. I have it from a prior Frog book. I think it was for 3rd edition or 3rd print. I have it from that. That's where the extra copy comes from. I bought a copy prior to that. I have like 2 different covers for it, but it's such a useful piece of gaming goodness. There are a number of books like it, but this is the one I keep on going back to.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the one that does. I think it's the only one that really goes top to bottom on the whole. Here's start to finish on an adventure.
Well, the great part about it is it's plus it's system neutral, which is great because you can use it with old school. You can use it with a 5e. You don't even have to use it with D&D. You can use it with any kind of role playing game or just something to get the juices flowing. There's some things there's some things I probably use more than others. One of my favorite parts of it is the adventure title one, because I can roll up 10 titles for adventures and I'm rolling. I'm rolling at that point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like the the sort of general ones, like the locations tables are the same kind of way. You roll on several columns and you get a description of a location, and it's usually fairly interesting and fairly weird. So it's one of the more popular ones. Yeah.
How many charts are we looking at in this book total?
There's more than 400. I forget exactly how many there are. So
because it does it. Well, there's 500 plus pages.
Yeah.
Over 400 random generation tables. But I understand that the revised. I'm just watching the numbers increase as we're talking, which is a beautiful. I feel like we're like on some I don't know, telethon right now. It's like,
this is the moment that it all breaks out.
Yeah,
we're amazing. We're absolutely amazing.
Take off and head toward the $750,000 Kickstarter.
Oh, we should be so lucky.
Yeah.
I feel like we're like Jerry Lewis right now. It's like, look at the money coming in. But you've added to this one, and I'm intrigued. As you what did you actually? I read the write up, and I did my post earlier today about this. Mm-hmm. But you're basically adding I call it mind seeds, but you're adding little bits to tease the creator.
Yeah, the actual tables in the book are the same. I went through and modernized a little bit of the language, and there were a few places where I picked a word that brought that had more possibilities to come out of it than what was there before. But anything with the tables is very, very minor. The real goal here was, since I left Frog God and I took with me the rights to the book, got the rights to some of the art that's in it, but not to the actual layout itself. So really what this is simply, it's the Mythmere Games version of Tome of Adventure Design. It's not complete. It's not revamped. There's nothing, brand new about it, except for I wanted to put in something that actually dates back to the way that I wanted to do the book originally, which was that I wanted to put in at the time word clouds, which I'm told are super clunky and show my age because and they're also pretty inefficient space wise. But I really wanted to have something other than just the tables, because when you roll on a table, you can get something that's either a fairly boring result some of the time, or you can occasionally get something that's just so weird that you can't put it together into something useful. And what I had in my head originally was that you would have this second vector going on in your subconscious that would be coming from these word clouds that were in there, which was just very small pieces that easily fit in to, that you would see lots of them at one time, and your brain would sort of pick out the ones that worked best with the table result. So this is actually going back to some of the original design behind this book. And so what we did was we've got there in total, there are I think about 3,000 unique micro prompts, and they only repeat, I think, about 4 times over the course of the book. There is some repetition of them, although it's not linear. I re-randomized them each time that they went in. And so what they're used for is, for one thing, they're just there in the corner of your eye when you're rolling table results, or you can use it like a magic 8-ball kind of a thing, where you're just like, you know what, I need an idea. What's my villain all about? And then you turn to it, and even if what comes up is something as simple as jousting, okay, my villain's about jousting. I've got a jousting villain, and that, and it tends to, it works. It's odd because it actually works even quite a bit better than it sounds. It's almost 100% that you get something that's useful from it. But that's really the only new thing in the book. So I mean, I'm not trying to get out there and tell everybody that you have to buy a new copy of the book. There are not new tables. It's not reorganized. I'm going to come out probably with some more books of tables later down the road that are reorganized and have an entirely different approach to doing what we're doing. But this is not it. This is just to get this book out there, and it does have something that's new and cool in it that I think people are going to like a lot. And it's something I've never really seen before out there, so I think it's useful.
Yeah, well, it's been out of print for a while, right? I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw them really in the wild. So, it's about due for a new printing, even if there's nothing changed on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it hasn't actually been reprinted since the original version, because the 2 covers, the dragon cover and then the tree forge cover, those have exactly the same interior. This is the first time that anything's been changed in it, in the history of it. So, I think I think people, I really do think people are going to like it, and people are reacting, really well to the look and feel of it, and to the people they're on our website, mythmaregames.com. You can actually get a sample of some of the pages, and it's the location tables from the very front of the book are in there, so that people can see what it looks like when you've got these micro prompts, and sort of give it a test run, and you can download that from the website.
Okay. Speaking of that, explain to us, because I know you're dying to explain to us what apophenia is, and why we're going to love apophenia.
I've explained
a little more.
I've explained what apophenia means more times in the course of the past week than I care to think of. Okay, so apophenia is just it's a human characteristic that when we see apparently unrelated things, we try and turn them into a pattern. And from an evolutionary standpoint, it's obvious why we do that. Oh, look, here are some deer footprints going off in that direction. Maybe there's a deer out there, and so we're that's the way that we're conditioned to work. And so what you get from that in terms of creativity. I mean, there are a couple of different aspects to creativity. One of them is the sort of raw brainstorming process, but that you also have to be flipping back and forth between that and evaluating, is what I just thought of a good idea? Does it fit for what I'm trying to do? And so the apophenia gets you going on the raw brainstorming side of things, which is basically if you throw almost any pattern, and that's what these micro prompts pretty much are. They're I did not put them into order. I used a random thing to get them in there. So you grab a couple of those, and some of the stuff from the tables, and you've established points from which you can start to generate a pattern. And that pattern, that's what an adventure is that when you're trying to write one, you may have some disconnected ideas, maybe an idea for a good trap, maybe an idea for a good villain, but it's when it starts coming together of, oh, it's this kind of trap because it's this kind of villain, that's really when you start getting something that's good. And especially because your players are going to be trying to usually follow a trail through this adventure, and it's got to make sense. And so that's what we're that's why it's so much harder to start writing from a blank page than it is if you have, a writing prompt. Creative writing, people use prompts like this, all the time, although they're longer ones. But,
right.
it's just to get you started, to get you past that blank page effect. And so that's one of the things that these micro prompts help with a lot, I think.
That's interesting, because I think in a lot of ways we tend to use this at times without even realizing we're using this.
Oh yeah, it's cloud patterns. It's seeing Elvis in a slice of toast. It's all the time. Don't you see Elvis in a slice of toast? I do.
I've never seen Elvis in a slice.
Mike's nodding his head.
I was nodding for a second. That I didn't want Matt to get.
Then you realized what you were agreeing with. Yeah.
Yeah. I said, wait a second.
Patterns in the clouds, certainly, and then of course, as you're watching the patterns in the clouds, they morph, and that's a lot of what's going to go on when you start using this, because the pattern you initially see may not be the pattern that you wind up using. That's even just using the original tables from Toad, as I affectionately refer to it as, was always less me rolling random dice and my eyes scanning the page looking for what looks good together. What do I like from this? What speaks to me? Because when I use Tome of Adventure Design, I'm looking to find the name of an adventure that's going to inspire me to write the adventure that will somehow refer back to the name. Maybe not clearly to everybody, but at least in my mind. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, is to get that first step. The adventure.
The first step in any of this is the hardest. I mean, in the introduction, which was written many years ago, I'm not sure I 100% really agree with the point that I was making at the time, but I was like, try and resolve it into a visual image, because I was talking to Rob Kuntz and a bunch of other people, and almost everybody, who's written one of the great adventures, has said it really came together when I saw this, and they have this sort of visual image, and then everything, and it was sort of like all the ideas worked toward that, then it coalesced in that visual image, and then it wrote itself from that point onward, that everything else kind of followed from that visual image. And with Rob's one, it was the golem with the fan and the sword, iron golem. But that's a real common thing that people describe when they're talking about the big adventures. So that's
no, you're right. It is. If you've never used a product like this, you're going to be in for a treat, and you don't realize it when people say, "Oh, it's a book of tables." Well, there's a lot of books of tables, and some of the great ones out there are like the D30 Sandbox Companion, the D30 GM's Companion, which is similar to this, but really streamlined. But what Matt gives you here isn't just designing the adventure. It's to seed what's going to be in the adventure. It's seed your mind. And there's not too many that do that. It's not necessarily for use in the middle of the adventure, unless you're trying to throw out some seeds to a future.
Yeah, that's one thing that people ask us about a lot. Well, can you use this in the middle of the adventure? Well, I guess you can, but that's not really. I think it's best used, because that's going to might be like anything else that's going to slow your game down if you're flipping through a book, rolling dice.
Yeah. It can be used. It can be used like an hour beforehand, and you're in pretty good shape. But at the table, I don't think for at the table you want something that's more like the old ready referee sheets or something like that. Real short tables that are always you're never going to get a wrong answer because they've left off all of the really hard stuff. This works much better for it's like it says, it's for adventure design.
I think you get one thing I use it for a lot. It gets you out of ruts, and I think I saw somebody on Facebook, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Lloyd Metcalf. Somebody the other day was saying that they keep using the same kind of bad guys. It's always some, and they wanted to know, well, what's a different kind of bad guy I can use? And we all fall into those ruts where like we have a really familiar path we take when we're writing adventures. Whether it be it's one of my things is I love goblins. I always throw goblins in adventures, and my players get tired of having to fight goblins all the time. So I have to mix it up. But I like goblins. So what can I use instead of a goblin? Well, that's great. You roll in the book and you roll a couple of things. Okay, what's a different kind of bad guy? Oh, this bad guy's a defrocked priest who whatever. I mean that's how I like it. I like it as it breaks up your usual mental processes to make you go down a different path.
Mm-hmm.
It gets you out of a rut, and isn't that the whole thing that something like this is meant to do? I mean, as Matt stated, it's there to kick off your process, to get you out of the rut, the mind block that you might be in, and to have you brainstorm. And I find for me, this is the perfect product that I've gone back to for I don't know how many years. I mean, Matt, wasn't there a version of this that was self-published in like 3 different books?
Yeah, it was. I think we did the first 2 books separately, and yeah. So I mean, it actually predates my joining Frog God. This book does.
Right. That's what I thought. I mean, that's how many iterations that I own of this product, because it really is that good. I mean, I don't see myself sitting down to write up an adventure, and I write them up whether I'm running for a con or going to throw it into Torchlight or some other small project. And you don't want the adventure that sounds like every adventure that's ever been written. And I have my own rut. My own rut is I like cultists because they're always behind the scenes, but not always in your face. But I tend to overuse that, which is why I've used the term adventure design to get myself out of that rut. And then you find weird combinations. It's like crystal, skull, spider. Oh, okay, I'm going to make up a new demon based upon what I'm working at from the tables. And sometimes I will try to roll, and a lot of times I'll roll and go, oh, okay, I like 2 out of 4 of the things I rolled. I'll keep that, and then I'll match up something else.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I do say during the book that I suspect is the hardest thing for people to do, is to not try and it's not a challenge necessarily to try and use exactly what you rolled. It's really not designed for that. It's to use whatever works that you see nearby in the table. That's why I like it so much in terms of how it works as a book, rather than a random generator on a computer that just spits you out 10 possible results that are in no way related to each other. And this one, you're seeing the stuff that's around it, that's adjacent to it, and that it is absolutely okay when you're doing it to be like, this doesn't work, but this looks great, so I'm going to use that. But we're all gamers, so we all try and follow rules. So you try and do it the way you rolled it. I can do this. I can make it work. But
as rolled, as written.
Right.
So now John Miller has a question, and the chat's been very chatty, but John Miller wants to know. He's back to Kickstarter. He wants to know what else can we expect from Mythras Games.
Okay. Well, the first thing we can expect is that it's going to take quite a while for it to get printed, even though we're getting it printed in the US, because they're not going to even be able to start on it for a few months after the Kickstarter. The delivery time is about the same as it would be if we were ordering it in China, but we did decide that we were going to stick with the US for this. Although a Chinese flag vessel is probably one of the safest places on Earth right now, but there are supply chain difficulties. So we're printing in the US. So we're probably going to be able to deliver in time for Christmas is the plan, unless the Kickstarter gets absolutely huge and overwhelms the printing capacity. It's a big printer we're using. It's Walsworth.
So stop by. Don't buy anymore. We don't want this to get too huge.
Right, stop everybody now. So now, while that's going on, Kickstarter, because we are, in Kickstarter's eyes, a new company, because we just got on Kickstarter, we're not going to be able to do another one until the first one has fulfilled. So probably what we're going to do is bounce back and forth between Kickstarter and Indiegogo. We will probably do one of 2 things on Indiegogo, and that might be it might be a Mythmere Games Swords and Wizardry single volume book. Right at the moment, the Frogs are still selling the box set, and we're going to let them sell through that. So that's probably not the next thing to go up. So it's probably going to be the City Encounters book. And that is now, that one, unlike Tome of Adventure Design, that one has morphed quite a bit in terms of the approach that I took, because the original City Encounters book was a straight up only probabilities. If you roll this, then it's this, and maybe there's a 50% chance that the guy is going to do this. And on looking at it, I decided that if you're looking at those probabilities, you've always got the problem that whatever the most interesting result is, that's the one that's the least likely to actually roll on the table. So I decided to go ahead and just do, you still roll the encounter number, but inside the encounter number, there are, I went with bullet points for here are the possibilities that it might be, and then a list of equal weight, for you to pick from. Which I think some people, on Tome of Adventures, I'm pretty sure everyone's going to like the micro prompts. On City Encounters, probably some people are going to wish that I had done it with probabilities rather than bullet points, and some people will be like, "Wow, the bullet points work really well." But on thinking through it, I decided to go with the one that was like, okay, you're under a lot of pressure when you're running a city adventure. It's probably one of the most difficult kinds of adventures to run is a fast-paced city adventure. And so to just have, here's your list of things, just go ahead and pick one rather than trying to, roll and then possibly reject the result of that roll.
Because it doesn't fit. And like mentoring city adventures, the reason why they are so hard to run is that, and we all talk about we don't like railroads, but to some extent, a dungeon is a controlled environment. Mm-hmm. You pretty much got an idea. Your players can only go, left, right, north, south, whatever. In an urban environment, they're going to be like, "Oh, I want to go to the cobbler." What? Why would you want to go? They're going to throw curveballs at you because you've got players that just love shopping and interacting and role playing, which is what the city environment allows more than the dungeon or the wilderness environment. And it's more, I think, dynamic because it's living around them. They're not going to find encounters. Encounters are only going to find them. Yep. That's the difference. So I've been gaming since I was, 13, and city adventures were always the last thing as a DM I wanted to have to deal with. There's always a hand wave. You're in the city. What do you need to get? All right. The armorer says it costs X number.
You find yourself on you're at the bar. You're at the alchemist place. You're at the church.
That's just.
So I'm interested in Mythmere here. So you have and this is probably digging deep. So you have some products that all the time you were at Frog God, we never really saw. I'm interested in Mythmere is doing anything with them. One of them was Tomb of the Iron God. Now, I know there was a version that came out, the World of Jordoba version, but are you interested in doing anything with Tomb of the Iron God? Because that was very, very good.
We'll probably put that one out. We do have a lot of the old PDFs in their original, 2009 form on the website, the mythmeregames.com website. And those are fairly rough cut, DIY era of the OSR kind of things, but a lot of that is out there. Tomb of the Iron God is something that we'll do. I got Rogues and Rembalo is, I think, already up there. That was one of the ones that I wrote. I wrote it for Frog God, but it's one of the ones that was basically just put into the Borderland provinces, and again, that's a city adventure. So yeah, I think ultimately we're going to see those, and then they may or may not, get a facelift, for the.
So here's an adventure. This is going back a few years, and nobody's going to know this. Do you remember you wrote an adventure called Demon Spore?
Yes.
If you ever wanted to do something with Demon Spore, I'm a fanboy, man. I have all of Matt's stuff. So the only place I remember seeing Demon Spore was, I think I got it on Lulu years ago.
Yeah, and that we should put that up. I'm never sure about that one. I really love that adventure.
I think I liked it. I liked it a lot.
It ended up being freaking huge once I got the whole thing done, because it started out as a a 2-part adventure, and it ended up being 2 almost independent adventures in the same book. The one with the Toad King, and then with the actual demon spore thing.
Yep.
So.
Very, very good adventure. So yeah, if Matt doesn't do anything with it, go to Lulu. I just looked and Lulu still has it. So go buy it on Lulu. Matt gets a cut, I'm sure. So,
yeah, I get a cut of it, but we'll put it up. Obviously I prefer to sell it, through the actual website. So that's right.
Sure.
We'll put that one up. It's been a chaotic process, the whole building things.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to rush. You take your time.
Yes, you are, Mike, but that's okay. That's all right. I don't blame you for it.
I want everything at once. I want it all there.
You are actually trying to rush me, however. Let's be clear.
Well, and I did notice. So I noticed on your site you have Knockspell up, and Knockspell, for those of you who don't know, was a great little fanzine. It wasn't really very little. It was always huge.
Some of them were big.
It came out about a decade ago, and I forgot you actually got 6 issues out of that. But it was
I think it's 7.
It was a lot of people contributed. A lot of people did contributions. That there's adventures in there. There's rule supplements. There's monsters. I mean, there's just anything you can imagine. What was the other one? Oh, Fight On, and Knoxville were my 2 favorite things.
Yes,
with this,
they were an awesome.
Well, Fight On. I mean, isn't Calathena restarting Fight On?
I heard he said that on Facebook. He said he's supposed to be bring it back after a decade or so. So yeah, so that one's going to restart, I think.
I mean, my first published work was in Knoxville, issue number 6. Actually, I gave it away at the handful of people that went to my bachelor's party. It wasn't much of a bachelor's party. It was just kind of go out drinking with my old gaming buddies. And then I felt like I killed the damn thing, because after that, there was no more issues. It's like I wrote a bard class Swords Wizardry, and look what I fucking did to it. So, yes.
Everyone else blamed you too, Eric, actually, but no
one. We talk about it a lot, but I'm just looking at the first issue of Knoxville. And so if you're interested, I mean, so here's some of the authors we have here. Of course, Matt, we have Tim Kask, Alan Grohe, Scott Hoover, James Malazewski, James Boney, Gabber Lux, Mike. I mean, these were the big names. Jeff Talanian, I heard of him before. Michael Curtis. These were all the big names in the OSR when the OSR was just becoming the OSR. So I mean, Knoxville's got some great stuff in there. So if you wanted just a really good little snapshot of what the industry is like, it's been about 10 years now. About 10 years ago,
you got to do air quotes around the word industry when you're talking about that period of time.
The monetized hobby, maybe starting to monetize,
barely monetized.
Yeah. But yeah,
boy, is it ever monetized now?
Well, and that is a huge thing. I mean, when you're looking at Kickstarters, there was a time when if you made nearly 47,000 on a Kickstarter for the OSR, it was like, holy shit, which is a new record. And now it's like, oh well.
Yeah, what did OSC end up doing? OSC ended up doing.
They're like over $750,000. So now
insane.
people are gonna go, well, Matt only got almost 50,000 after today. I mean, yes, it's a success, but it's not and that's amazing, because you can go back. You would have been setting new heights and records back then for it. So it's a beautiful thing to see. But it includes higher expectations too. What people expected 10 years ago was, hopefully somebody will actually put this in my hands.
Yeah.
Now people no longer go, no longer a hope and a dream. People now want to know, oh, well, you're kickstarting it. Is it written? You have all the artwork? Is it laid out? Is it already printed in a warehouse, sitting waiting to ship? And people start asking those questions, which weren't the questions that we had 10 years ago, which I guess is an improvement, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think it is an improvement. The thing that worries me about it is, so far, the OSR has still not lost its DIY quality overall, I think. But I do think if we ever lose that to the point where people are exclusively focusing on the shinier, more commercialized products, then that would be a problem. I mean, I hope it always keeps the DIY thing is really, I think, the heart of what goes on with that. And,
No, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's what has driven the OSR part of the hobby since the beginning. You driving it with Osric back in the day. It was people making decisions and trying stuff, not necessarily going, oh, how much money am I going to make of this, but in a way, how is this going to be received? And, the win is if it's going to be well received and people are going to enjoy it and use it, then that's more important of a win than and obviously everybody needs money in their pocket, because without money in your pocket, you don't pay for rent, food, health insurance, or whatnot. But the joy of putting something out there, I've been able to see certain products, I'm not going to name any, that were put out because we could slap a name on it and hopefully make a buck off it, as opposed to somebody putting honest effort into it, hoping to get it out in people's hands and enjoying the process of getting it out there and being proud of the work they do. It shows in the actual content.
It's really weird because you're nostalgic. I have nostalgia for a time that every once in a while I'll pick up the Holmes box set and I'll flip through there and I get this little twinge of nostalgia back when 1978 or whenever I first picked it up. But I also have this weird nostalgia for about 2008, 2009, because that was back when I really first started paying attention to blogs, and that's when all these guys like Eric was starting out, and James Malazewski and Chicago Wizard, and all these guys would and this is just because at the time everything was third edition. All it was third edition. The first edition rule books were no longer in print. You couldn't get old modules anywhere, but you could go to these blogs and everybody was talking about old school gaming. And it was just an amazing time because there was so many. It was amazing to know there were so many creative people out there that still liked old school gaming and were still supporting it. And then right after that, we started seeing stuff like Osric and Labyrinth Lord and basic old school, D&D coming out. And so I have a nostalgia for that time too, because it was such an amazing time. It seemed like there was all kinds of possibilities that could happen.
Honestly, I think we're still in a period of time like that. The problem is that when that was going on, there, you could see everything. Eric's blog had a list, with the blog roll of all of the blogs that were basically in existence for the old school, and there were maybe 3 or 4 forums, and so you could see all of it concentrated in one place. And the infrastructure of social media now splits everything up. It slices and dices it into a particular company, a particular personality who's running a YouTube show, and you can't see it all in one place. I think there's more activity probably going on in the OSR right now than there was back then, probably by an order of magnitude, but you actually have to work harder to find it now than you did back then.
Oh, and I think part of this, like you were talking Mind Clouds before, I'm going to talk about Venn diagrams. Back then, the Venn diagrams, yes, the OSR had different corners of the universe, but everything overlapped. And maybe parts of it, but you followed Tenkar's Tavern, you were following Joe the Lawyer's Wondrous Imaginings, you were following Rob Conley's Bat in the Attic, you were following all this different stuff. There was all this overlap, and the blogs have mostly taken a step back. Very few still exist from that blog time, and some have like. I do both. I do videos. I still do the blog, but I've heard complaints. People like, you don't have the same content. Well, I can look at what content gets read by this current consumer, and they don't read the gaming content so much as what's the news going on. You can see the shift. You can see the shift just by looking at the numbers of how people interact with your blog and the page and the views certain stuff get. I love writing game content, but now that stuff's going to have to go into like a zine. People expect now, zines to give the gaming content. They want that digest-sized physical content that comes out once or twice a year, and they want it physical. They're not looking for even people like Courtney Campbell, putting up these wonderful tables or new content, or they want him putting out a book. They don't really want to look at his blog stuff.
Yeah, not short little snippets of content. So yeah. Hey, have we got any? Sorry, have we got any good questions from the thing? I am not seeing this on the YouTube thing, so I'm not seeing the questions from YouTube. I'm seeing them pop up on the screen itself.
Well, yeah. So Matt, have you thought about doing supplements similar to the Flying Buffalo Pretty Books?
Well, that's a lot like. Hang on a second.
Yep.
That's a lot like what City Encounters is, except that it's sort of the walking talk. It's sort of the walking talking buildings from the old City books. What it's changed into is there are basically 400 encounters that each of which has various possibilities within it, rather than the list of 600 encounters that it originally had, which had lots of repetitions of the things, except that somebody might have a different name or different hit dice or so on and so forth. And so I streamlined that down to where, a bandit chief, there are probably only 2 or 3 encounters with a bandit chief type of person in the new City Encounters, whereas there were probably 20 in the tables in the original book. So it does actually, it is a lot more like the Flying Buffalo things. In terms of actual buildings, in a city, no, I haven't. I think that there are, for that kind of thing, there are people who are better at writing interesting little locations than I am. I'm good at adventure designing. You got to know your strengths. I'm good with tables. I'm good at organizing tables. I'm good at coming up with stuff to put into tables. But when it comes down to the sort of segment piece like that, that's not really one of my strengths. Dungeon rooms, it might be, but in terms of a city and city type places, I don't. So that's for somebody else.
John Miller, personally, I would be happy to buy reprints of Matt's old adventures and products, including a redo of Swords Wizardry.
See, there's other people trying to get you to do things too. It's not just me. It's everybody else.
Well, you're the one on the screen, damn it. But here, coming from the man with 54-year-old eyes, larger font, please. That's all I ask for. Okay. I personally think the box set is beautiful. I love it, but I still got to go back to my my earlier blue covered Earl Oldest cover, because I don't need to pull out like my reading glasses.
Yeah, no, I think that's how we're going to do it is with that, and I'm not going to make a big deal, about the next Swords and Wizardry, version, simply because it's. It'll go out there because Mythmere Games needs to have a book out there of Swords and Wizardry more than because it is an event. So I'm probably not doing that with a Kickstarter either. So,
somebody asked here, Matt just asked here, and I work for Frog Out Games. I don't even know the answer to this. Cyclopean Deeps is my absolute fave. Do you have Cyclopean Deeps, Matt?
No,
I actually don't know. Okay, you don't. I don't know.
No, Frog Out
kept that.
I left that one. I left that one with Frog God.
Oh. That was good. I always enjoyed Cyclopean Deeps.
Yeah.
No, that's I enjoy that one too. But that was
bug Zach for that one instead of Matt. Go ahead and start bugging Zach and tell him you want to do Cyclopean Deeps.
Okay, so apparently James A. Smith's blog is still active even after his passing, and that was a shame. I felt that passing because that was a blog where he really kept on top of the news in the OSR. Yeah. So apparently you can still find 666 layers of the blogiverse. Like I said, regardless, the blogging in the OSR or overall has decreased. Times change, and
it's different. Well, I mean, it's a much more visual. It's less writing, more visual now. I mean, look at how YouTube's exploded and how Twitch and all those different formats, Discord even. Even though Discord's not as visual as YouTube, but yeah, everybody has a YouTube channel now. They don't have a blog; they have a YouTube channel. They have a or they have a Twitch channel, or they have whatever.
Right.
It's a lot easier to record a video than it is to sit down and write a blog post.
Oh God, somebody who does both. Trust me, I know. Matt Jackson, any big collaborations in the works?
Hang on, first I have to say, Matt, good to see you, man. I haven't seen you out there in a while.
I game with Matt on Mondays often, so it's
awesome.
It's fun.
Any big collaborations? No, not at this point. There is something that may kind of be in the works, but that I'll talk to people about in about a month or 2 months. But in terms of working on a particular product with somebody else, no, not at this point. Right at the moment, I'm trying to get Tome Adventure Design out the door and into people's hands. Going to try and get City Encounters, which people have been waiting for like 10 years, trying to get that out to people. Have a version of Swords and Wizardry complete out there for people to get, and then once I've got that, then we can start on getting out the new stuff. And so I'm starting to outline a couple of the adventures and this things that are going to go after that.
All right, Greg, another of my friendly Monday Night Gamers. How do you manage the separation between your personal and professional life and online interactions? That's a heavy question, Greg.
Justin Lanasa is taking notes right now.
Right. Well, back there was a time when I had friends who weren't gamers. But I think at this point, pretty much everyone I know is a gamer, so it doesn't really require all that much separation.
There's no separation. There's no separation anymore. You've achieved nirvana or something quite like it. Yes.
Yeah, or nerdvana.
Well, honestly, with me, everybody I interact with on social media, I know via gaming. People that I know outside of gaming, I communicate via email or phone calls, but gaming is social media, and that's the reason why I don't. For the most part, I don't share anything but gaming posts to my Facebook wall or whatever they call it, because you step anywhere near politics or social issues, which are all important stuff. It is a burning bag of shit that somebody's going to put in your door, and the moment you try to step it out, everybody else will pile on. It's just the nature of social media, so I avoid that aspect of it. But it's how I communicate with my fellow gamers, and I keep my ear to what's going on in gaming. So I don't want to call it a necessary evil, but there's an issue with that. Matt Melman, another Matt. Mats are all over the place.
We're actually a secret society, except for the Mats out there. Y'all don't know this, and all the Mats, of course, already do know this. There's simply a secret association of all Mats in the universe. So
I thought so. I've always thought this.
Yeah, my local pub has a collection of Johns. Not in not in that sense. It's like it's John the Greek, John the bartender, John the owner, Jonathan. Head down is John, who that's his own title for himself.
So apparently, when I was a kid, Mike was a common name because I had 3 other people in my same grade that were named Mike, and of course we were all friends, and that's where Bad Mike comes from, because we started calling each other by our last name. It was Mike Hump, Mike. It was Stang Hump, Bad Mike. I mean, we all had abbreviations to our last name because there was just way too many Mikes. Thank goodness that now people are naming their kids Chase and I don't know, Jordoba. Did somebody name their kid Jordoba? Jordoba is a good name.
No,
it is a good name. But
Matt wants to know if there can be could there be a collaboration between map making Matt and adventure writing Matt?
The map making Matt, in case anybody doesn't know, is Matt Jackson, who does great maps.
So,
and there we go. I didn't even see John saying, "How about a Jordoba source book?" There we go.
That might be the something that we work on. Like I said, I've got sort of a horizon of get out the City Encounters book, get out the Tome Adventure Design, and I guess I was really just kind of thinking about whether Jordoba would be something that would work in that context or not, without, because the thing with Jordoba was really that was just a campaign where I was running the online games. And so there was a bunch of, ideas and stuff that spun off out of that. And so I put it on, paper and put it out to a Patreon. So that was a really very different model than what we're going for. But that might be, if people like Jordoba and want to see Jordoba stuff, let me know.
Well, that's all right. Jordoba stuff could be a semi-regular zine. You could be, you could have you have other material already there, and if it's a zine, you don't have to organize it, right?
Are the videos still up for that? Because I tell you what I liked about that is, so everybody else that wants to be Critical Role, you didn't try to be Critical Role, which I thought was cool. As a matter of fact, you went in a totally different direction.
Yeah.
And that was, we're going to emphasize the fact that we have miniatures here and we're going through a Dwarven Forge type dungeon. And you had this little camera that would go along the little hallway, and you'd be right there with the miniatures. It was just like I said, such a unique style in a world where everybody tries to say, we're going to be the next Critical Role. So we're going to get my 5 friends around here. We're all going to talk in funny voices. And the guy who runs the game, he thinks he's going to try to be Matt Mercer, but he's really not, because he's not very good at that. And everybody tries to do that, and it just bores the hell out of me. But I really loved your stuff, because it was just like, no, we're just going to focus on the fact that, yes, these are miniatures. And yes, I have a little camera.
One of the best things about that was that you could jump scare Skeeter every single episode just by turning the camera towards something scary looking, and because he was just into it, watching the screen and living the moment. I mean, he's a great player, but every single time that you managed to turn until to the point where I was starting to set it up, I was like, this is going to be my Skeeter moment when I turn the camera and he sees this.
All right,
you were painting the miniatures too, right, Matt? I mean, you were doing a full service there. Yep. You were painting miniatures and running the dungeon, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
John Miller wants to know: did you convert your non-gamer friends to gamers, or did all your non-gamer friends ditch you?
All my non-gamer friends ditched me, but that was in about 6th grade.
Oh God.
I've been talking with friends of mine from way back, on just over partly because of the Kickstarter. My friend Jim Hazeltine that I've known since I was 5, my friend Sean Dickensheets, who just moved to Minneapolis, and just sort of talking back and forth. So it's kind of funny the question about did you, but I've been gaming for most of my life, like most of us. But
right.
I started when I was about 10 years old. So.
Ty Beard wants to know: is Jordoba the car that Ricardo Montalban did commercials for in the 1970s?
Rich Jordoba and leather. No, I don't think so.
Oh, there's a collection of mats. There's also a collection of anti-mats. Mats are universe. God, that was a painful joke to set up. I don't know if I did it justice, but.
Come on, man. Come on, guys. Bring your A game. Matt doesn't come here very often. Come on, bring your A game.
So James Kumar has a question. Gotta ask, why did you use that particular style for Jordoba? The walls kind of lost me, to be honest. I don't know.
Talking about the patterns on the walls that I painted, you mean on the miniatures?
Maybe just the style of it, the fact that the way I liked it because everybody else in a what do they say in a world of Veronica's, you were a Betty. I mean, it was a different style. Everybody was trying to do the same thing for a while. And matter of fact, they still are. Everybody still is trying to be Critical Role.
Yeah.
I thought that was.
I don't even know if Critical Role can be Critical Role at this point. And it's something that never interested me. And I'll be honest with you, I generally don't enjoy real play or whatever they call it.
I'm with you. I can't. I wouldn't say I can't stand it, but I zone out after about 5 minutes. And Matt, like I said, that Matt's was one of the ones I didn't zone out after about 5 or 10 minutes because I want to see what kind of miniatures he has.
I felt like I was at the table, Yeah. And maybe because I knew people like Skeeter that were at the table.
Sure.
But I could see myself at that table. I didn't feel forced. It didn't feel scripted. It felt honest. And I think that is lost on. I mean, one thing that I joke about, that this channel is like the public access cable when we were kids, right? Because anybody can do it, and you don't need any real technological ability.
Eric and I have proven over the last almost 2 years that anybody can do it. Truly, we've absolutely proven that theory.
But the idea is, if you put yourself into it honestly and you enjoy it, we don't script, we don't come out like Matt. The pre-show with you, it's pretty much catching up with you and bullshit.
Right.
It's so professional. Yeah, he was.
And there was no difference between the pre-show and then when we started recording, and it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
There's huge value to authenticity. I mean, people like to watch authenticity, and reality, and that's why reality TV show, even though it's not authentic at all, it looks like it's authentic, and that's one of the reasons that people like to see it. But that's why public access cable is a lot of times fun to watch. I mean, Wayne's World.
Yeah,
who doesn't want to watch Wayne's World? It's the real thing, and when you really are doing the real thing, it'll a lot of times succeed. And people will at least forgive the times when you can't think of the right word that you're trying to think of.
Right, because you're being honest. I mean, we didn't come out here and we basically said, "Hey, Matt, we're going to cover your Kickstarter. We're going to cover Myth Beer Games." Wasn't a list of questions. We weren't going to be like, what's the speed of an English swallow? What's your favorite color? We don't script it, because the conversation is what makes this, again, honest. I mean, and hopefully it means that our viewers enjoy it too. But it seems like from the numbers, they enjoy it.
Well, plus one of the things that Eric and I, when we first, this is pulling the curtain back, is we didn't want to be the people that ask the same questions. Like, you notice we haven't asked you one question about, well, what was it like to start Ostrich? Because every interview I've ever seen with you, somebody asks you about Ostrich. I could tell that story now, Matt. You don't have to appear for those interviews anymore.
Yeah,
I can tell how you started Ostrich and exactly everything, because I've heard that so many times. So Eric and I, we've always said, let's talk about different things. Let's just blow all that stuff off. What's the origin of Matt Finch? We don't give a shit. What's Matt Finch doing now? Let's find out what he's up to now and find some new stuff out. We're not going to fill everybody in on the past stuff. If you want to catch up, go catch up someplace else. We're going to throw some different things out there. That's one of the things we always said we would do if we ran the show, which we've done a pretty good job of that too, I think.
All right. Here's from your mapping Matt. Do you have a game running now? If so, how long has it been running? And do you ever run games online?
Okay, I do not have a legit game running right now. Unless you count the conventions, because I let people bring characters in from earlier games and conventions. They keep their levels, they keep their experience, they keep their magic items, and so in a lot of ways I do have a long running campaign with all of the people at these conventions who've been running the Mithras Tower games. But no, I haven't been running an actual campaign for at least 3 years, not since before we went to Arizona. And that was a couple years ago, and then moved. Right now I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But haven't been in an ongoing
Mithras
campaign.
Tower started in North Texas, by the way.
It did start in North Texas. In fact, Mike is the whole reason that I have, what little fame I actually have, is because I was invited to be a special guest.
So he set me up. See, Matt and I have known each other so long now that he set me up for one of my favorite stories in gaming, and he did that on purpose because it's awesome. Because he's awesome. So, yes, because I always say that I made Matt Finch because North Texas was the first North Texas was the first convention Matt ever ran a game at. And so the story goes that we were looking for cheap guests because we're a first-year convention. And I'm like, oh, Matt lives in Houston. He can just drive up here and run games. And obviously he's done this a lot because, the guy wrote Ostrich and wrote this and that. So he gets up, he drives up, and he's and so we're talking. He goes, oh, I've never actually ran a game at a convention before. I'm like, we're doomed. This guy has no clue what he's doing. He's here and there's no clue. But instead, you ran the Spire of Iron and Crystal. I still remember this game because I have a picture. I'm in it. One of my original gaming buddies, Dr. Joe's in it. Bill Barsh is in it. and we're in the closet room. Remember, we were actually in the closet.
Dennis Astaire was in it.
Yes, and Dennis was in it. Dennis was great.
Is this the throwing the rocks over the top of the wall story?
Yes, and it was just we had the best time. And I remember after the game was over, we bought every copy you had of both Swords and Wizardry and Spiral Iron and Crystal, mostly because I didn't know what the fuck we were doing the whole time. I had to figure out what the hell what was going on in Spiral Iron.
Well, because you were trying to run a convention at the same time. I mean, your attention was half on the game, and half people kept coming over and asking you questions while the game was going on, and you were more and more trying to push them away. I'm busy, kid. I've got this game.
We had a blast, and I knew that this kid had something, man. But I mean, we had a great time. So I jokingly say I made Matt Finch because that was the first convention he ran a game at. And of course, soon after that, he was hired by Frogger Games, and he became a world celebrity. Jetting around. The supermodels. I mean, the whole business. He became big after that. But yeah, that was and what. Just segue a little bit, you're coming to North Texas again this year. Matt is one of the very, very few people that has actually been to every single North Texas, and that includes the COVID year North Texas. You actually came that year, which I'm very grateful you did.
You could not cancel the convention. It had to go on in some way, shape, or form.
Had to go on.
No way. So I was like, well, fine, I'm in.
If everybody wants to, whoever shows up, we end up having about 70 or 80 people. Whoever shows up, we're going to have a convention. And so Matt graciously came. So Matt actually has been to all 14 conventions, and that is a very small list. It's literally since Doug passed away, it's me, Matt, I think Jim Johnson. Mike, who was Mike Carey's buddy, who also had come to all of our conventions, and that may be Dave Ray, I guess Doug's son, and that may be about it. There's about 5 people that have probably been to every convention. So he made his bones at North Texas, man. That's where you started Mithras Tower, and that was a hit. That was a huge hit. I remember I played the first year you ran Mithras Tower. I played, and I was like, this is great too. This is a community dungeon that runs every convention, and everybody keeps track of their characters. And I thought it was awesome. And you're still running Mithras Tower too, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we had just at GaryCon, had another couple sessions.
Oh yeah, speaking of Gary, now you just got back from GaryCon. Anything you can tell us about GaryCon? I haven't really talked. We've talked to too many people, and Eric and I are mostly focused on the prurient interest in TSR Con or the lack of it. So we didn't really. We're not actually focusing on the real story, which is actually GaryCon. We're just off in the weeds. I was
in Lake Geneva, and I didn't see any TSR Con there.
But you were at GaryCon though. So how was GaryCon after?
That's true. I didn't go looking for one either, but I was there.
It wasn't on the radar. Okay.
It wasn't, but anyway, no, it was a really good convention. When the biggest event there was Satine and Jameson getting married. That was a great. There was tremendous, noise and everything set up over there. Luke looks fucking awesome in a wizard suit. He had to dress up like a wizard, and it was a great costume that he got for that. It was a good convention. They had the vendors were off very seriously to the side, and I hope they're going to have the vendors at a more central location in the future, but there's construction that's going on over there, which I think was part of the reason why they ended up having to move the vendors off to the side. And it's not too far. But the thing about the Grand Geneva, I think the name of the place is that it's got non-Euclidean geometry. Because it's built on hills, and so the floors, you're walking on the second floor, and then all of a sudden you're on the third floor. Then you have to go down the stairs to the third floor, and now you're on the ground floor over here. Plus, the building is not level front and back either.
Right.
So I have gotten lost walking a straight line path on one floor of this hotel before.
It's based on a Frank Lloyd Wright design that, by the way, he never actually built. That should tell you something. Frank Lloyd Wright designed it and never actually built it. I don't think we
should ever do this. Yeah.
Yeah, this is too crazy for even me. I designed this, but we're not going to build this thing.
Yeah. So anyway, but the dealer hall was good. The first day, it it snowed, and a lot of the dealers were really worried because their first day, the Thursday, I think it was, almost everybody was like, oh shit, we really didn't do very well today. But by the end of the convention, everyone was like, nope, we're actually caught up back to normal. So it didn't apparently actually, hurt anything, the fact that it was off over to the side. But the vendor hall is one of my favorite things about any convention, and so I like to have the vendor hall centrally located, because it's just that's the big attraction, that and just sort of looking at
time to kill between games. You want to see what people are selling. You want to talk to the vendors, because a lot of times they're the publishers. How often do you get to talk to like Jeff Talanian, or the Barshes? Well, all right, if you go to the bar, you can probably find both. But if you don't have that option, and you're not doing that, you can always find them at their vending tables, and that's a great way to talk to a lot of those people.
Yep.
By the way,
you gotta go to you gotta hit the Black Blade booth, because they're the ones that have
Black Blade.
They have every publisher that doesn't go gives their stuff to Black Blade, and it's just ridiculous, all the cool stuff they have there. So
yeah, no, I had a chance to sit down and have an actual cup of coffee with Alan and John, who are the Black Blade. That's John Hirschberger and Alan Garley. So, which was more than, with most. I hung out a lot with the Barshes, that's Pacesetter Games.
Right.
And saw Larry Elmore, but Larry was surrounded by people the absolute whole time he was there, because it was the last convention that he's planning on doing. So his time was super monopolized.
That sucks. That really sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
We love to have, I'm always going to be happy. We had him at not one, but 2 North Texases. That's amazing. He came to such a small con, but yeah, it really sucks that he's just not going to be able to do it anymore, because he's a great guy, and he's everything you want a famous guy to be. He's funny.
Yeah,
he's
that's true.
Self-deprecating. He talks to you. He talks to everybody. He just talks to people, and he's really cool. He's not. He's one of those guys that's kind of unaware of his fame type of thing. He knows who he is, but he doesn't mind sitting with a bunch of people having a beer.
Yeah, he's not full of it.
Yeah.
By the way, James, the alcohol consumed during the recording of these live streams is not as much as you might think. For me, it's usually a glass of wine or a beer. I don't, Mike, all right, well, Mike has a bottle, but or 2. But
I've had to cut down lately because of my stomach issues. So this is why I'm drinking this water beer called Michelob Ultralight. By the way, thank you, Dennis Pipes, for leaving a case of this at the warehouse, because I never thought I'd drink it, but it's pretty much like water, but it's beer.
Well,
so
if you want a light beer that's not like water, Light Side from Blue Moon, it's actually got some flavor to it. I was very surprised. So I gotta say that. But yes. John Miller has a question for you.
I'm resting up. By the time by North Texas, we're going to have our whiskey tasting.
The whiskey tasting, yes.
We have whiskey tasting. So by North Texas, I'll be my liver and kidneys and stomach will be up to snuff.
If you could rewrite the primer to old school gaming now, what would you add or change?
Ooh, good question. Very good question.
Well, I think I wouldn't really change a whole lot. Ben from Questing Beast and some other guys have done a better analysis of the OSR than I did in that little pamphlet. And they're looking at the different parts of it, because the OSR is not a monolith. It's got different factions in it, some of which are diametric opposites. People who want to, see new art styles as opposed to people who like the retro art styles. Those are both in the OSR. They're directly contradictory to each other. And so I think that Ben, did a good job of getting a better characteristic of it. But for me, I think that for purposes of figuring out what are we really about, I think the key thing in there is the open-ended rules of something, because if you have got rules that are trying to cover everything in a game, it is simply not going to turn out. I think the key thing about the OSR is the interpretation, whether you if you don't like it and call it DM fiat, or but it's the fact that you've got interpretation. It's not all in the numbers, it's not all expected to be in the rules. There's going to be improvisation. There's going to be improvisation as to even what the rule is during the course of the game, and that was what I focused on in that, and I really think that remains the core thing about what the OSR is. And then I had examples of how to do it that I really think stand. So I think for what it is, the primer for old school gaming, I guess what I would change now is the places, where for reference, I was talking about third edition to say, here's the new school. So I guess I'd backpedal on the dichotomy. The dichotomy was real at that point, that there is a new school way of doing things and it's like this, and there's an old school way of doing things and it's like this. That's not so much true anymore, because now that third edition is gone, fifth edition is a lot closer to a sort of an old school approach to things. So I guess what I would do is, I wasn't trying to be confrontational when I wrote that. I wasn't trying to set up a false dichotomy or start any wars or anything like that. The idea was just, look, there's a way that people are learning how to play the game now, but there is another, entirely different paradigm of how to play it, and that's, what we're calling old school, and put that over here. So I guess what I would do would be to, remove the view that there are two ends of a spectrum.
Okay.
That it really does blend.
But there was at the time, man. I mean, that's
oh yeah. I know there was at the time.
Edition, yeah, third edition came out. Third edition was nothing like first and second edition, for those who don't remember, and it was an entirely different game with the name D&D on it, and it was probably at its height, it was as popular as 5e was now, in that everybody played third edition. And so I remember going to my local store and just, I mean, I had a little group that was playing first, second edition. We couldn't find anybody to play with. There's like 3 or 4 of us. We would meet every week, and the rule in the store was you couldn't play a game that they didn't sell the materials of, but the owner took pity on us because we're just so pathetic, because we were the only people there playing first or second edition. But they wanted you to only play games that they sold in the store, and he let us. We came in at a weird time, like noon on Wednesdays or something, and he let us play. But it was just it just taken over. I mean, third edition had taken over everything, but it wasn't old school in any way, shape, or form. And so it was quite the revolution when these old school things started popping up, in kind of a reaction to that. And you needed something like the primer. Like, look, this is how we're different. This is why we're different. And you're right. Fifth edition has eliminated a lot of that need, because fifth edition is they have. I don't know the word you'd use. They've assimilated some old school tropes and old schoolisms. I mean, it's not entirely old school, but you could read a 5th edition module and you could run it old school. You couldn't. Yeah. That was very hard to do with 3rd edition.
No, I think that's extremely accurate. By the way, for those that want the Matt and Matt corroboration, for those interested in Matt and Matt, any map I have made, not previously licensed.
You're selling this, Matt.
Not previously licensed, is available for free for Mr. Finch to use in his Myth Media Productions. And he's serious about it, because Matt's offered something similar to me, but I don't have your clout. So I mean, that's a great collection.
All right, Matt, we'll get in touch. Right at the moment, like I said, I don't have any adventures in the works, but we'll go for it on that.
I'll tell you what's great too. I mean, I was just reading. Matt said 3 burned me off D&D, and that was a very real issue, because I remember when I was doing research for North Texas RPG Con, one of the things Doug and I wanted to do was have a convention where you played old school games. And I remember looking at every convention in the United States at the time, and the only one that had any sort of an old school track was TotalCon, who had Frank Menzer would come there and run some games. Every other con was all 3rd edition, just all 3rd edition games. And so it was really like you at that time, you had to kind of blaze your pathway back to, it's kind of like Back to the Future, back to the way things were done. And you still have a whole generation of people now that grew up and their game is 3rd edition or Pathfinder now, because that's when they came of age. But for a lot of us, it was really, I just can't tell you how amazing it was to find there was people out there that not only wanted to play old school games, but said, hey, look, the OGL is going to allow us to do this. in a really cool way. We're gonna be able to start writing this stuff even. People just don't understand that now. It was a very real thought that look, there's our generation is ending. We're looking at the end of our generation. Nobody is ever going to play old school D&D ever again. They're never going to publish it again. This is it. And then to have stuff like Osric and Labyrinth, Swords Wizardry come out was just the most amazing thing. So we have Matt to thank for that, and a lot of other people too that said, look, we can do this. We can bring old school back.
Who puts out the best printed version
of Osric?
I believe it means of Osric. Blackblade?
Yeah, of Osric. Blackblade, the only ones that I have seen are the Blackblade one, and then the one that was done.
Oh, I know what you're talking about too.
And he died.
Was it Underwood Press?
That's Usherwood.
Usherwood.
But I preferred the Blackblade version of it, largely just because of the art. But I think it's probably the Blackblade. Like I said, out of the two that I've seen, those are the only two that I've seen. So
okay. I'm just trying to catch.
We're getting swamped with the little messages now across the bottom. So.
Yes, and listen, folks. I know the spam that hit, and the reason why the spam hit because I knew Matt was coming in. A lot of people want to talk with Matt that maybe were new to the channel. So instead of the normal 20-minute timeout for new subscribers, I did 5-minute timeout, and apparently they had 5 minutes of their life that they could spend waiting to spam. So. Such it is. We survived. By the way, I believe yes, 12:50. So at some point we will give the new raffle thing. So if you haven't commented yet, there's 33 people currently in.
Wow, about to say that might be a record. That might be a new record.
We hit 38 at one point. But there's 32 people in right now. If you haven't commented, say hi to Matt. Puts you into the raffle. We're giving away two $50 drive-through RPG gift certificates. So get in before we do the drawing in a few minutes. Catching up. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to ask Matt a question. Do you have any idea what you might be running in North Texas this year? Mithras Tower or anything new or old or?
Probably Mithras Tower and possibly something that is new and secret at this point.
Well,
interesting.
Okay.
But that one, what I will, and possibly also a high level Mithras Tower game. So the possible secret thing, which is an if I'm done with it kind of thing. What I'll do is I'll put it up on the bulletin boards at North Texas because North Texas has bulletin boards out there that you can put off grid stuff on, and so I'll put it up there.
So definitely check for that. Yes, that's something you would definitely want to do.
And
you have to be in a Matt Finch game.
I won't schedule those ahead of time via the computer at all. So
Matt will sometimes have a table with a lot of people in it. I don't. Do you still do that, or I remember you telling me one time you weren't necessarily that comfortable having 15 people at the table. Is that still something you do, or?
Well, certainly not in the days of masks, and also, God, oh my God, yeah. At Gamehole, we had to wear masks when running the game, and so even though I was in a closed off room and with only 8 players, my voice was dead because I trying to project past the mask. And I was probably like 5 times as loud as I needed to be too. They could probably hear just fine, but I had no idea. You really gauge, how loud you're being. So that was a killer. And then at GaryCon, the rule was that if you were wearing a badge, you had to be wearing a mask. So I took my badge off to run the game.
You're a rules lawyer, damn it! You're a rules lawyer.
Luke knows how rules lawyering works. I'm sure it was phrased that way for a reason. So there I was, but again, one of my games was in the large room and my voice was trashed with 8 people. But I did one. So in recent history, I did one game in a private room. And that one without having to wear a mask, and that one was fine. So I mean, depending on where the regulations are, by North Texas, I can take in more people if I am in a closed off room and run a game of 15 to 18.
Well, we're not going to
people,
require
but-
masks unless our rule of thumb is unless the DM wants the mask, we're not going to, because as of right now, Dallas County, Tarrant County are not. There's no mask mandates, so it's going to be it'll be up to you. If you want to, you can. If you don't have to, if you don't.
I just follow what the convention says to do and what the local government says to do, because
sure.
I'm immunized and boosted, and I will have had probably a second booster by the time that we get to North Texas, and apparently. It's largely a crapshoot in any way if you're inside in an HVAC system. I just do what I'm told, basically.
As Gary backs me up there are no mask requirements in North Texas. Gary is my co-runner at the con now that Doug passed away last year. So Gary and I will be taking care of it this year. But yes, no mask requirements, no vax requirements. We've actually been very lucky the last 2 years because both 2020 and 2021, there was a drop off of COVID right about June, which we benefited from.
Oh yeah,
through just luck, just having luck both years. It may have something to do with the weather getting warmer, who knows? But I think we're headed that way again. I've been looking at the numbers, and I posted something on the North Texas page. We're down about 1,000 a week now, every 1,000 more every week. So we should be fine by June. So. Cross our fingers, and hopefully we'll have as much luck as we did the last couple of years. And so
it looks like Matt Finch saved Matt Jackson from playing racist because he was playing racist until he found Swords Wizardry and the primer. So another miracle. See what the OSR does. You see what Matt Finch started between Osric and Swords Wizardry.
Mm-hmm.
All these other systems out there that are OSR that are retro clones, we're not going to go into the deep history, but if Matt hadn't said we're going to do this, and if Matt hadn't basically said, take your letter and shove it, we're not going to answer it, we wouldn't have what we have.
No.
Well, except you always got to say, Stuart Marshall and Chris Gonerman in that same sentence, because it wasn't just Chris all by himself had the same idea at the same time, and then Stuart and I did it together.
But Matt wants to know where we can find Matt Finch haunting the net these days.
This was like my complaint about how it used to be that you could find the whole OSR at one time, back when it was smaller. I mean, I'm on Facebook. Facebook's normally what I use. I don't much like Discord. And Twitter's okay, but I don't really use it because it's so short that you can't get much out of it.
Oh yeah, I understand it.
So it's pretty much Facebook. And then
OnlyFans. You have an OnlyFans page now, right? I can't remember.
What is that?
He doesn't know. I love that.
I think he doesn't know.
That's great. I don't want Matt to know that because I want Matt I want Matt concentrating on writing games and writing rule systems, not. But with James Seymour asked, North Texas limit of 500 to con. Yes, we will have that. We're over halfway there now, so we've got about 300 tickets sold. So we should hit our 500, which is great.
I have to get tickets for myself and Rach. I'll do that. That's coming.
Eric, stop it!
I always
just get it done.
Get her done.
Get her done.
James Seymour wants to know, how should a novice get gaming supplements published?
Is the question, how did a novice do it, or how does?
I think it's how does. I think spell check is killing people tonight.
Yeah. You got to talk to people, really, is the thing. Is which of the companies is doing the kind of things that you want to write. Talk to them, or just do what I did and just get on, publish it yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
that was part of the whole thing with the OSR, is that it does make it possible for a couple of guys to get together and just publish something. You put it up on Lulu or Drive Through RPG, so there's multiple different ways of doing it depending on if you're trying to break into the real industry or whether you're trying to just get something out there that you've done that's your own piece of work. And I guess there are different pathways to that.
I mean, what you need to do.
Matt Jackson just sent me a fucking Facebook friend request, Matt. That's why you've never heard where I am. Hang on a second.
Oh man,
I think Shadow and Son did too. But folks, if you're going to self-publish, you're going to have to learn basic layout. Can you do layout in Word? Certainly. Can you do it in Pages? Certainly. Can you use one of the free word processors? Most likely. My first two, pay what you want, I used a service called Lucid Press, which is an online site that allows you to do some very basic wrapping and stuff. There's different ways to do it. Now, we are putting out a new edition of Continual Light, which exists because of Matt's full Swords and Wizardry. When he whittled that game down to minimal pages and minimal rules, James Shields did the cover for that one. That's going to be beautiful. Mm-hmm. That I was lucky enough to have somebody who said, "Hey, I've learned layout. I need experience. Can I help you?" Because my layout for the original Swords of Wizardry Continual Light was, I think the best compliment I saw was it was serviceable, which is never what you want to hear from anything unless you're working in a service station. Well, the service at the service station was serviceable. Okay, well that's fine. But no, I'm not a layout person. That's
or just be like Dirty Harry in the movies, and man's got to know his limitations. I mean, that's why the stuff I've done for North Texas, I've done with Tom Wilson. Why? Because Tom Wilson does all the hard stuff. He does the layout and placing the art and stuff. I just can't do it. So either become serviceable, as Eric said, at it, or find somebody that'll do it. And most of the time that works out. That'll work out pretty good. The OSR has been a really great. I don't know a whole lot of dickheads in the OSR. I mean, I know that. Well,
Well, no, I
some.
What? I mean, are we in two different OSRs?
Yeah, you don't know a whole lot.
Yeah, Zach Smith
popped into my head. Blocked a lot of people. Okay,
I block them out of my mind. Yeah, but yeah, people are just very helpful. I'm going to plug two of my buddies here right now, Rocky and Ian, because Rocky had just jumped. He'd asked a question.
Rocky has a question. Jason has a question.
Yeah, but Ian offered to do the maps on my. I had the pub crawls thing that Eric and I are working on someday. I've actually got some art done for that, but. Ian offered to redo the maps for me, and I believe Rocky offered to do the layout. So if I'm wrong, Rocky, tell me no. You never volunteered. I can't remember. They're only like 3 pages long. They're like 3 or 5 pages long. It's not that hard, but yeah, people are really nice, and that's honestly that's one of the best things about conventions is that you go to a convention. That's where you make these connections with people. And it's just amazing. You find, that's where you find your artists and your layout guys and your writers and your all your guys. As you go to conventions, you're sitting around the bar talking one night, and next thing you know, you have a project figured out.
So to answer Rocky's question about are there plans to ever publish Mithras Tower? Okay, so first of all, yes, Rocky, if I am doing the high level game, you'll be in it. And then the question about whether I'm going to publish it, the answer is no, because everything that my copyright violations of this is Elric, this is from Conan, they all go into Mithras Tower, and there's no way of knowing anymore, what stuff I actually wrote and what stuff I stole from somewhere else. So that's the one place where I let myself, steal freely from other people and violate copyright and the whole bit, which is why that will never see actual publication. In terms of what OSR stands for, I always say old school Renaissance, and I've heard the other ones. I was probably the first person to put those 3 letters together for the title of Osric, but that was because I was looking for something that would, sound cool when it was an acronym, and so I screwed around with the whole. So that's where the OSR thing comes from, and there it definitely means rules. But when I was talking with people, I Renaissance was much the more common thing, because what we were, and it's taken a different meaning too now, because at that time we were trying to describe, there was this community mostly at Dragons It's not Dragon's Foot. Dragon Prince. What the fuck?
No, Dragon's Foot. You're right.
Dragon's Foot, and then the magazine is Prince. Okay, it's Footprints.
Yeah.
That's why I always they came out with a magazine. So that was where most people hung out. There was also Knights and Knaves, and there was ODD 74. But what we were still trying to figure out, really, you know, what is it that we all exactly have in common, other than the fact that it was the rules. And so I was just so I was trying to describe the community and the fact that there was that community rising back up again, and it wasn't so much really the focus on the rules anyway. But to me, OSR is old school Renaissance.
Fair enough. I like that, folks. I'm going to, because we're going to try the new giveaway tool. So, and then we go back to the comments.
Here we go.
I got to actually do it on the right page. Okay, let it collect.
Here we go.
Oh, look at that!
Hey, it's showing everybody's name. Throwing up there. And is it going to like slowly roll?
Mike can't win. Mike can't win.
Well, that's definitely random.
Oh, what a rip off! Damn it!
All right. So let's see.
Let's slowly.
Fugly
has won.
you know how to get in contact with me. That's worth 50, and we got to do another draw because I'm giving away 100.
Oh, okay. Wait. What was that roll?
100 on this show, 50 on each of the two Friday night shows, and 50 on Saturday. So keep this all together because we got 1,250 subscribers. So
good deal. So that Fugly is one of our winners.
Let's see.
Come on, let's win again. Come on, bad Mike. Come on, bad Mike. Brent Spur.
Email me at tenkars.tavern@gmail.com. I'll put it into the chat. Tell me you want a prize, and I on the live stream, and I will get it out to you probably within the next day or so.
Matt, somebody the K5K asked, I thought was a good question here. How would you approach conversations with newer players, especially 5e, who think that all OSR players are evil, racist, misogynists, with terrible worldviews based on their interpretation of rules?
Well, I mean, it's obviously not based on the interpretation of rules. I mean, the thing to point out is that what the OSR is about is a particular, style of play. I don't think it's, I think probably everybody knows that, politically I'm a little bit to the left. So, just the demographic of the people who began playing, between 1976 to 1980, it was almost all white men playing in the first place. That is a more rightward demographic. So to a certain degree, people are not wrong. The OSR is probably shifted a little bit, toward the political right. But that's not the point of it. That's an accident. That's simply, that's an epiphenomenon of the thing. What we actually do is play open-ended rule sets, that are focused on, sort of sword and sorcery or pulp type adventure. And so, it's not at all the case that, that there's no connection whatsoever, except for statistically and demographically, and someone could have predicted exactly what it is that you'd get, which is that the groups that are playing systems from before are going to, have a slight, demographic bias one way or the other. So how to persuade, I don't know. I mean, that if you're talking about being in a game with people, it's, it's your own example of who you are. So if it's a question of, watching shows, then that's their preference, what they want to watch. So I don't know. I mean, it's a really good question, and it cuts to the heart of, some really difficult issues, that we've got in the OSR, which is that we're politically fragmented when there is actually not a political aspect to what we do. And yet and yet that fragmentation is there, and it's real, and a lot of the issues, really are important. But I don't have any real good answers for it. I wish I did. I've been thinking about, that kind of issue. There are certainly some people that I think everyone in the OSR would point to as being problematic. Don't even say it, Eric, but we all know exactly, I'm sure
I'm not saying anything.
A couple of names came to everyone's mind at that point.
Yeah.
And there are some people that are, universally viewed as problems, but I wish I had, something more meaningful to say about it, but I really don't.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? Because you see what you want to see. So if I think 5e players are all weirdos, I'm always going to see that. I'm going to walk by a game and a 3-hour. I can watch a 3-hour game. And at the end of the 3-hour game, I came away with, well, this one guy, he was trying to do this and this. I mean, I've noticed a lot of that with OSR too. Is that I'll see people say, well, every OSR game that I see, blah 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 happens, and I'm like, well, I'm not seeing that. So either you're being very selective about what you're pulling out, which is human nature, right? I mean, that's just human nature. You're going to see what you want to see in any kind of event. But that's also, as Matt says, it's very true. Is that why is that a consideration at the table? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a consideration at all. And I've seen people say stuff like, well, I want to know who my DM voted for before I sit down and play. And I'm like, we had that twice. 2 people have asked that at North Texas. If they could, this isn't this year, but this is in years past. If they could know the politics of their DM.
What?
Yes, this was actually asked twice. This is years back. This is when, I think this was during the Trump presidency when everybody was going nuts. That they needed to know because they did not want a game with somebody who was different politics. And we're not going to do that. Come on. That's please, that's not necessary for what we're trying to do here. Which Doug and I've always said, we just want you to come and game. We don't care. Just go and roll dice, and it shouldn't be an issue. But some people make it an issue.
It's the commonality, right? Gaming is our commonality. Enjoying old school games is something that we all share. It's why we're together. I couldn't give a flying fuck how Mike or Matt or Matt Jackson or Greg or Fugly or Shadow. I don't care how you vote. I don't care what you. We're here to play games. The games is the neutral ground, right? That's it. We come for the shared experience of what we have in common, and that's a love of gaming. If I want to talk politics, I'll go down to my local pub and get drunk with a bunch of the other retirees.
And this is a very modern thing too, because 20 years ago when I was in college, I didn't know anything about anybody. I didn't know a damn thing about people I play with, except that we're just going to meet on Saturday night at the at the room at the dorm, and we're all going to game. It wasn't important, and this is just a very modern aspect of our society that's becoming more and more fragmented by these kind of things. Is that we're becoming more tribal in this stuff, which is it's sad. It's really sad that this is happening because sometimes you'd be surprised. You get used to the table with we gamed last Saturday. The group that I game with, we gamed last weekend, and there's 3 people in my original gaming group that I gamed with in 1978, and there's 3 new people, and I would say that we're definitely all over the place politically. I mean, because I've known 3 of the people. My brother, who's so far left, he's in some kind of weird other dimension, and then
and he also looks good in a Speedo.
Yeah, and he wears a Speedo to the midnight auction. But I mean, we have every spectrum there, and sometimes we'll start out and we'll talk politics for like 5 minutes, and then okay, time to game, boom, and that's it. Dice roll, and that's it's over. So you wouldn't even know it, with we're over there that we're actually just extremely different politically, all 6 of us. Yet we don't have, that's not our litmus test to game. And it shouldn't be. So, but also what's cool is you do get to meet people with different viewpoints. And that's one thing we miss too in our society. The more fragmented we become, you become more walled off. And that's what's great about gaming. You get together with all these people that you don't know and you hang out for a while. And then next thing you know, you're talking about movies or, TV shows or whatever, sports even.
Wasn't the old saying always like, for the holidays, you don't discuss politics or religion at the dinner table?
Right. The Thanksgiving dinner test is always a good.
The family reunions. Don't bring up. Yeah, exactly.
Matt Jackson, by the way, wants to know what does Matt do or did in his real life?
Mergers and acquisitions attorney.
There you go. That's certainly real. I mean,
gaming is more fun.
Yeah, in a sense, it's real in the sense of that's a real job that I'd want nothing to get to be near or comprehend, because that sounds too heavy.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting shit, but the stress level is way too high.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, now listen, I became a cop because retail stress was way too high. Honest to God, it was
you make strange decisions, Eric.
Retail at Christmas was when I started going gray at the age of like 23. It's like, oh, hey, look at this! I became a cop, and suddenly my hours suck, but I can go home at, like, usually expect when I'm going to go home, as opposed to retail where it was just like, I hate going to work. It's going to be miserable, and I don't get paid crap. Yeah. So I'm catching up on these comments. You people got to. You can shut up now. By the way, we already did the 2 drawings, but wow. All right. Looks good in a Speedo. Let's not even go there.
No, I think he objectively looks better in a Speedo than Mike would look.
That's. I think there'd be a mountain of evidence to point that way. So
many people have seen Rob in a Speedo, and
I've never.
Many people had no choice but to see Rob in a Speedo.
This year we're going to auction off. We're going to have an auction whether he should or should not be in a Speedo. So you actually have a chance to vote with your dollar this year. You're actually going to vote with your.
See, you have to have 2. You should have to. What you need is 2, donation boxes, and 1 donation box is for the Speedo, and 1 donation box is leave the pants on.
We haven't planned quite like that. You'll be happy to.
Okay.
I was going to say saying leave the pants on is a much better way of putting it than without the Speedo.
No, we don't. We're not going to go that far. Even Satan has limits. Satan has.
That might be a criminal violation in certain
cross.
And I don't think that would stop Rob either.
No, I don't think it would either.
No, he just at this point he's found his niche in society and the world and gaming. So yes.
Matt Melman, don't we have a police officer who goes around in blue hair? Actually, I still have more blue hair dye ready to go because we're getting warm again. So I got to. Once we're warm enough that I can put on my wonderful yoga / wrestling outfit, I'm going to go out, put the blue hair on, and take the dog for a walk in Forest Park out here in Queens. I do promise that. And we may auction off the outfit at North Texas. I may have to model it just so you can. Those going to North Texas may see me live. I hopefully I don't get stopped by security on the way in the airport and have to explain the clothing. But if I did, I would just say I'm going to a classic wrestling event. I'm going to be dressing as, I don't know, one of the dandies from back then. Jeez, God help us. Tassels have been put on the table.
No, not tassels. No, we're not doing that. That's the great thing about running a con. You could just start doing absolute fiat. We're not going to do that. Tassels, no tassels. Sorry, no votes. You don't get a vote on that. Nobody gets a vote on that.
We are almost caught up. I'm no longer having to scroll on this. Thank you, God.
All the work you did to build up a YouTube channel, and then you bitch about the people who come.
I'm not bitching about it.
These people keep watching us. Stop it.
Stop typing there. You're driving me nuts. Argue with your kids. It's always fun. I was arguing with my son right before we logged into this, right before Matt logged in. My son's like, "Oh, but you doing a live again? Another live stream?"
That was so funny because it's like, it's like, come on, old man, what are you doing? Another live stream?
Yeah,
stop this live stream stuff.
Aren't you supposed to be sick? He's the one that dropped me off on Friday to my angiogram and then picked me up.
No, you're better now. You're okay now.
Yeah, I did a live stream when I got back from it and got yelled at by my future daughter-in-law. Because she's like, "What the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be in bed resting."
You're just talking. Yep. Just talking, man.
No, I can't help it. The unwashed masses are commenting, and we really do appreciate the unwashed masses. Oh my god!
By the way, if you looked at the Tome of Adventures on Kickstarter,
I'll take a look. Hold on, let me look.
47.7. We've got you almost $2,000. I don't think we're gonna break 50, but 2,000. I would like to say that's probably all our doing, by the way, too.
Well, we picked up. There's like 30 new backers, right? Because weren't we at about 2005?
We were at 1,000 or 1,001 when we went live.
Yeah.
So we've picked up over 30 backers during this live stream, and we have 30 people watching live right now. So if you haven't backed, I strongly do recommend it. It is the best tool.
It'll be the best $50 you spent this year on a gaming product, probably. So
yeah, and like I said, I own 2 copies, one each of the original covers, and I actually have them in 2 different states. And I will be having another cover, which will probably be at this very desk, because I'm looking forward to seeing what the margins add to this, because I do like things that nudge the brain along for this stuff. I do enjoy writing adventures, and here's the thing too: if you're writing an adventure for your table, what you're going to put down on that paper is a lot less than what you're going to put down if you want to be published. Okay,
a lot less,
because you fill in all those blanks. What you put down for yourself is all little memory joggers for you. Oh yeah, that's the role of the kobold, and you know how it's going to play out. But when you want somebody else to read your words, you can't, assume that they're going to think like you. They're not going to. You got to spell stuff out. So if you do want to self-publish, or if you do want to submit an adventure to a publisher, yes, you have to look at the published adventures that are out there. Look at the successful ones. Look at the ones that people talk about, and see how they are written. They might be written in different styles. Find a style that fits you, but there's a reason why they are written as they are, because I know there's the mindset of less is more, and it certainly can be, but you have to be very good at less is more if you're going to write a published adventure where less is more, because you still have to be able to hit all those points. Very few people can do that. I think Michael Curtis did that with Stonehell. He was fairly curt with his text, yet still covered everything that he needed to cover. That's a skill. It really is. And somebody else asked earlier, should I have it edited before I move it on? If you want it to be accepted by a third-party publisher, I'm going to say this, okay? Grammarly is a huge help on the basics. It's not going to put you in a position where you can publish something. You need actual eyes, because, and there's 2 ways to look at this. Either you want somebody who's not a gamer to read it because they'll pick up on everything, or you want somebody who is a gamer to read it because they will understand terms that the non-gamer won't. But do you want somebody that's editing or for content, or are they editing more like a spell check / correcting your grammar? I think you want more of that than actual editing, because if you're going to do real full editing, you might as well self-publish. Just my thoughts. So, okay, John, yes, get the word out on the tome. This is the best OSR product currently being kickstarted in terms of sheer utility and usable with any rule set. Yes, you could use it with White Star. You could use it with Traveler. Is every table going to fit for those genres? No. But you will find tables that will fit. You just got to find what works. It's inspirational. It doesn't mean that it's going to write the adventure for you. Anybody who thinks that, out of your mind.
How do you back a Kickstarter? You go to Kickstarter.com or there's probably a link. If there's a link on the YouTube description or something like
yeah,
that.
I put it.
Well, Eric, post a link, Eric, and they can just click that link, and then once you go there, it'll say, "Hey, do you have an account or not?" And you can say no, and then you can just create an account right then. So
yeah, and
Eric,
I mean the basic way that it works on Kickstarter is that you've got the description of the thing, and then over on one side of it, it's got different choices of how to back it, which is basically how to buy the product. So on this one's simple because there's only two choices. You can either get the PDF or you can get the PDF and the printed book, and then you would hit back at this level or something like that. Click on it, and then I don't think it charges your credit card immediately. No, it doesn't. That's Indiegogo. But once the campaign is finished, if the campaign funds, and this one, for example, already has, but not all necessarily do, then it charges your credit card. So that's how.
I like the fact you only have the two choices, because sometimes when you have a Kickstarter, you run into paralysis by analysis because they have so many choices. And I think that's a definite mistake that new people do when they start running Kickstarters for the first time. They think that they want all these choices, and you really don't need that many choices.
Emperor's Choice, George. Matt, how many Kickstarters have you done? Any advice for first-time Kickstarter? Have not done a Kickstarter yet. That's the guys behind Arduin.
That's the Arduin Kickstarter.
Well, it's artist. It's
going to be.
They're the guys behind the Arduin.
Okay, cool.
Just got the Arduin books here, guys. Thanks.
All right.
So much.
So, yeah, I mean, if you guys want any detailed advice, Mike can probably swing you my email address if you want to talk more by email. But I've probably I've been involved in about 30 or so. Have actually, individually run, I don't know, 2 or 3, probably just, yeah, 3, I guess, counting this one that we're doing right now. The most important piece of advice about that is to do what you just did, which is talk to people who've done it before, and understand, what the various things are that are going to happen with it. I think the most important thing is probably be very, very careful with your costing. Make sure you know what things are going to cost you, so that you don't end up underwater. Those are probably, off the top of my head. I think
shipping's a tough one, because shipping is where a lot of people go wrong, because there's usually a lead time. There could be a lead time as much as 6 months to a year between your Kickstarter's offered till it ships. And the way things are in the world right now, shipping costs can go up overnight practically.
Yeah.
You got to be very careful about that.
You got to be careful about international shipping if you're coming from the States.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Kickstarter creators that I have communicated with during the Kickstarters, and the worst thing that you can do is set a low goal just so you fund, but it's not enough to actually make your Kickstarter viable. I've seen Kickstarters that have funded and then canceled before they came to completion because they were going to be underwater. The thought was, we'll do a low goal and do stretch goals to keep this ball rolling. And that is a fallacy, especially if you start out too low. You have to make sure that you're covering your cost and your investment at minimal. Matt Jackson, will you be publishing Core or Complete? He wants to know.
Complete first. We may do something with Core and White Box, but we're gonna open up with Complete.
Okay, that's cool. I enjoyed Core because there was an RTF file that you would put out for Core, and it was always fun to play with that and edit it, and it's like I can make if you're a house ruler and you enjoy having like house rules but have a document that your players can actually run with, if you can get the RTF file, it is a lot of fun to make your own. It's just that was a great thing for the community.
I'd forgotten we even did that. But
it was beautiful. That was I still have it on one of my hard drives. I'm not sure which one, I haven't looked at it in a while, but it's been house ruled for potential campaigns numerous times, and then of course I never end the campaigns. That tells you that you're a real gamer. That when you do material and you write material, and you never use it, you're a real gamer. When the actual act of creation is as enjoyable in some ways as the actual act of using it in game or sharing it, you got the bug. And I certainly do. All right. Plan on shipping at least one copy to New Zealand, Matt. Just backed.
We will do that. We've got some guys in the UK, and there's a guy in Germany where we're going to try and hopefully cut down the cost of the international shipping by staging it to those two places for the EU. And I forget how all it's getting to the Australia, New Zealand axis from there, but yeah, we'll get it there.
Oh, up to 1037 backers, almost at 48. Look at that.
Wow. So now we know exactly what we're worth. We're worth about $2,000.
$2,000.
That's not bad for 2 hours. $1,000 an hour
each. Yeah.
We could do that. I can live with that.
No, I thought my value was more like $10 a day, but all right,
I'll take $1,000 an hour, man. I'll take that.
Well, see, Matt, we kept you awake. You weren't sure you were gonna.
Yes, you didn't know you could do 2 hours.
No, I'm not functioning at 100% at this point, though. I should also say, so I'm ready to.
That's okay. It's almost over, man. Just
hey, Kim.
Like a minute or two, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Hey, have you got your? By the
4
way,
minutes and 30 seconds.
I don't know the answer. Do you have your games up yet for North Texas?
I put them in. So
okay,
they ought to
you got
be.
so
Gary, I think Gary cleared them.
Good
so
deal.
They should be up.
Okay, Gary cleared them. Gary's like, I don't know, this Matt Finch guy.
Well, because with North Texas, you put your game in and then it rejects your game.
Yes,
that's because that's the way it's designed to work, which is a real great Dougism. And so
yes, well, Doug's great feats of engineering is. There's a reason for that. It would take too long to explain here, but yes, that's how he did things. Yes, he did things the way he wanted to do them. And if your system didn't work, then damn it, he's going to make that system work the way he wants it to work.
Yeah.
And then also, Alex Kammer and I are doing a panel about gaming law. Where we're going to talk mostly about intellectual property, about how copyrights and trademarks work. But if anybody wants to get into, whether you need an LLC, what does it mean to be a sole proprietorship, or any, questions that come up, we're going to be doing that at North Texas as well for the first time. So.
That sounds interesting. That's really good.
I gotta make sure. I gotta see what time that time run.
It's on the Saturday. I think it's Saturday at 1:00.
Okay,
it's definitely on the Saturday.
I also wanted to pimp that Luau is doing a podcast or seminar. I believe either Friday or Saturday morning.
I think he was talking about Saturday morning. I'm not 100% sure.
I as little as I know about podcasting, I may do a drive-by to that.
Well, you got it, Mike. Yeah, Mike, you're an integral part of this.
I know. I know, but if anybody's going to the convention and they have their own podcast or want information about podcasting, Lou's a great guy, and we've obviously had him on the show. He helps me all the time, but he's not here tonight, so I don't know where he's at tonight. But yes, definitely. Check that one out too. That's one of the things that I would like to have more seminars. Doug was not a big seminar guy. He loved the art seminar. That was his baby. But other than that, he was just not a big seminar guy. But I would love to have some more seminars.
I think there are some people who just really, really enjoy seminars. I'm actually one of them. I should say. I say some people. Vendor halls and seminars are things that I enjoy at conventions. Really more than I like sitting down, at a game with people that I haven't played with before. I like games, where I've met the people before, but complete strangers sitting down where someone else is the DM. usually I prefer to go the seminar route.
Oh, I love seminars at cons. I remember, was it oh God, new Big Dragon Games. Rich hosted a seminar, I think, on oh God, was it Kickstarters years ago? This is back.
Oh, that was like that was a great one.
Yeah.
That we had the whole hall full for that. It was like 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning too, which is crazy. But that was a great Kickstarter.
John Miller, does North Texas have a YouTube channel? Any chance of posting videos of any of the North Texas RPG Con seminars on YouTube?
So
they only just started having more than the artist seminar this convention, which hasn't happened yet.
So we had actually at one point we used to tape all the seminars we had, and very sadly, Doug has passed away. I have no idea where they are. They're probably on a hard drive somewhere. And if you came to the warehouse, you'd find boxes of literally 500 hard drives. I don't know where those seminars are. I think sadly they're just lost to lost to time. But we at one point we did have them. We did have them all. As a matter of fact, we had them up for a while. Some of you can still find on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, you can find a B1 game that I ran about 7 years ago. That was one of the few that Doug actually uploaded. It's me running a B1 in Search of the Unknown game. But a lot of the seminar we had a Mega Dungeon seminar one year that was everybody liked a lot. I don't know where they are, and honestly, at this point, I'm so frustrated by the fact we lost them that I don't think I want to tape any sort of seminars because it just really upsets me that we don't have them anymore. Because we had some really great seminars. We actually filmed everything.
Everything but the midnight auction. But no,
we don't film them at auction. Midnight auction does not get filmed.
You want to see that? You got to be there. You got to stay up. You got to liquor up, and you got to.
There's far too many legal implications for filming the midnight auction that we don't want to step into. So
right.
Yeah.
So
and also the midnight auction is very late at night, which it is. That is going to be my sign to say that we've passed the 2-hour mark, guys.
Yes.
Hey!
Such a long week between the Kickstarter and the convention that I'm totally dying here. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off now.
We're going to wrap this up because it's a 2-hour mark. That's
a good one. I want to say real quick, James, we're going to have. There's going to be some stuff on Discord, but it's going to be totally fan based. Where we're not going to actually do anything except for the Discord page. Eric and I will talk about that more in the next few weeks as we ramp up to Texas.
Closer to it. So, folks, again, thank you everybody in the live stream. Everybody who watches this later. Matt, huge thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate
it. Man.
Answering everything because I'm sure they got more questions for you. Next time when one of your projects are releasing, maybe we'll steal you again. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
Huge congratulations to those that won some gifts today. Thank you for joining us. Tomorrow night, if you're on the Discord channel, we do a hangout at 9:00 in the Speakeasy for Tenkar's Tavern. Live stream this Friday with Glenn Hallstrom. Saturday with my wife, Rach, as we talk about gamers' health. And other than that, we're in the midst of the world of COVID. Use your common sense. That's what it comes down to. You're an adult. Use your common sense. Depending on where you are, different common sense comes into play. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. And God willing, I'll be back again tomorrow. But no live stream. It's a Thursday. All right.